So the question is for Godfather fans like me and all across the world, was Don Fanucci in the Godfather book and part two, or what he called the Godfather Saga for television, a real Don, but was he doing it smoke and mirrors? Well, we're going to go over this a little bit, although there's many YouTubes talk about it, but I want to do an audio version from out there for people that don't have access to or have time for like the 35-minute version. Don Fanucci, again, is a very important fictional character appearing in Mario Puzo's 1969 novel The Godfather and the film Godfather Part 2, a sequel to the 1972 film version of Puzo's novel. Fanucci is portrayed by the great character actor Gaston Mochin. It's based on the personality of Ignazio Lupa, or the Wolf, who was a real Black Hand figure. While ostensibly Sicilian, Don Fanucci dresses and carries himself in a manner reminiscent of the mostly Neapolitan guapo criminal subculture, all dressed in white, given the, hand. Fanucci is a notorious Black Hand extortionist in Little Italy, in New York City, who supports himself by demanding and collecting protection money from neighborhood businesses. When he meets up with Vito Corleone, the younger version, played by Robert De Niro, he witnesses Fanucci threatening to disfigure a young girl when her father refused to pay him, is about to intervene when he's stopped by his friend Genko. Now, this was the girlfriend of the owner of the, what he called the stage play or whatever. He basically tells Vito who Fanucci really is. Vito all loses his job as a grocery clerk when Fanucci strong-arms Genko's father in employing his nephew. In the novel in the Godfather Saga, the film adaptation re-edited for TV, Vito witnesses an attack on Fanucci by two young men who are tired of Fanucci's oppression over the neighborhood. Although Fanucci screams for help, nobody comes to his rescue and the two youths rob him, slash his throat, and leave him for dead. Vito knows from his own experiences that a real Don would never travel anywhere without bodyguards, nor would anyone dare to attack him in public for fear of retaliation. Vito begins to suspect that Fanucci's power comes from the threat of force rather than force itself. One day, while Vito is driving a load of stolen merchandise, Fanucci suddenly jumps onto the moving vehicle. He explains how he knows that Vito, Peter Clemenza, played by Bruno Kirby, and Tessio, played by John Aprio, have committed several robberies and are now trying to fence the stolen goods. He wants to wet his beak by demanding a cut of $200 each from the three men. However, he states he's willing to take less if his estimations of the cargo's value are wrong, and says he will report Vito to the police if his demands are not met. There is some realness to this, that he has police connections, but there's no indication when in the short minutes we see him if this is fake or just like a threat. This concerns Vito's suspicion that Fanucci is not as powerful as he claims, since a real Don would not get the police involved in his business unless he had no other way to enforce his will. Now, Vito assures Fanucci that he will convince his friends to pay him. That night, Vito meets with Clemenza and Tessio over dinner and expresses hesitations about paying Fanucci. Now, Tessio and Clemenza says they should pay, and they're scared of the powerful and feared Black Hand leader Maranzala, who is the true power behind the Don. Now, Vito meets with Fanucci but offers only $100. Impressed with the young man's courage, Fanucci tells Vito he will find work in his organization for a good movie. Vito is now convinced. Fanucci is all talk. Now, Vito mentioned within the conversation that he knows two bookies across town who don't pay Fanucci anything, and nothing happened to him. Now, after the session, Vito follows Fanucci to the feast of Saint Roch, and then via the rooftops into his apartment down the street. Very, very well filmed, of course, and this could be a movie in itself. Letting himself in through a rooftop doorway, he descends to Fanucci's apartment and partially unscrews a light bulb to hide his presence. When Fanucci arrives and fixes the bulb, Vito shoots him 3 times. The sounds of gunfire masked by the carnival outside and by the rolled-up towel Vito uses as a makeshift silencer. Of course, the towel catches on fire. After completing the hit, Vito retrieves the money that Fanucci had taken earlier, smashes the gun into pieces, dumps them down several chimneys on the rooftop of Fanucci's apartment building, and returns unnoticed to the feast. Now, there's a lot of subtext too as well, which is not talked about in the movie, but it's talked about in the book. We'll get this in a second. Now, because the hit was carried out on Vito's own initiative, and because he was the only one out of 3 not cowed by Fanucci, Vito moves from being equal partners with Tessio and Clemenza to become the uncontested boss of their operation. Vito, with Clemenza and Tessio as the lieutenants and Genko as the consigliere, gradually takes over the neighborhood and opens a legitimate business. And the people show him respects. He gets free, he gets free food. He gets free all kind of stuff. Now, the Genco olive oil company, named after Genco, his friend, will serve as a front for the legal dealings. Because Vito treats the residents with a great deal more respect than Fanucci had, he soon earns the neighborhood's loyalty. Since Fanucci was not well liked by the police, his murder is not investigated and is eventually written off as assassination committed by a rival gangster. Owing to his clean record, Vito was never suspected, though the common knowledge that he was responsible for Fanucci's death increases his reputation for toughness when it is needed. Now, within the book, unbeknownst to Vito, his son Sonny witnesses his father on the rooftop of Fanucci's apartment seconds after the Don's murder. Vito later learns after Sonny reveals it to him at age 16, after being nearly caught by the police for armed robbery, and basically Sonny said, I want to do the same thing you've been doing. It's this revelation that results in Sonny becoming a formal member of the Corleone crime family. Of course, this is not mentioned in the film, but you want to go back. Now, Fanucci, again, is primarily based on Ignacio Lupo, a real-life black hand protector and members of Morella crime family, one of the earliest in the States. His boss, Manzella, is likely reference to Giuseppe Morello, a prominent figure in the early days of the New York Mafia. Another possible inspiration for Fanucci is Guido Gallucci, an Italian-American political and crime boss who, like Fanucci, was known to wear expensive suits while collecting money extorted from businesses and civilians in New York's Italian Quarter, who was also murdered in a shooting committed by rival gangsters. Now, what Fanucci does, he goes through his part of Little Italy, and he does like the hand thing, and you know that it's all braggadocious. But the thing with Vito was always a thinker, and I think that scene where he shot Don Fanucci won De Niro the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Now here's a very, very weird thing. Gaston Moschen, one of the best supporting actors in all of the Godfather sagas. He's only on for about 8 or 12 minutes, but it's tremendous, the evil that he showed. Now, I really think, ladies and gentlemen, people have to, if there's other stuff on the, what they call the cutting room floor about that, the early Don Vito, especially Bruno Kirby has said there's other minutes that haven't been shown. It's quite interesting because in some movie versions, like I said, and like the Quebec version I heard, the stabbing of Don Fanucci is cut out, which is a whole different plot. It's like cutting out when Sonny gets the call that his father's been shot. And he's nervous for a second, and he talks to his mother soon after. I think Francis Ford Coppola did well to keep certain scenes in, but he really messed up on this one because, ladies and gentlemen, Don Fanucci, he's probably one of the most stupidest characters in any gangster movie, and the way the actor plays him, he's shot and he drops. Like, he opens up his jacket and is obviously, I can't believe you shot me, and then he just drops like you wouldn't believe. But when he's touching the light and putting the light back on, he turns around and he said, who's that? Bang. That's why a lot of people think Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1, because Godfather 2 is like 3 movies in one, if you look at it closely. Like, the Don Vito, okay, the rise of Sonny and the fall of Sonny, so it was like a different situation going on. Flashbacks done right are done perfectly. So that's my story about Don Fanucci and my thoughts on Godfather 2 and the complete book for television. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, you go on YouTube, see other people talk about this for 35 minutes, 9 minutes and out. So if you like what you're doing here with our screenshots and remote control podcasts, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.